All right, so now it is my pleasure to introduce the wonderful cast of Farewell AMOR. First, we have the writer-director Ekwa Msangi. And we have, yes, welcome. And we have Ntare Guma Mbaho Mwine. Yes, we have Zainab Jah.
You're on mute, Zainab.
And last but not least, we have Jayme Lawson.
Hey guys.
All right, so I'm so happy to talk to you all about this movie. It's a wonderful movie. Definitely one of my highlights from Sundance 2020, which we were saying earlier feels like quite a long time ago. But I wanted to start with Ekwa. I saw that you grew up in US and Kenya, but you're of Tanzanian descent. And this movie is actually about an Angolan family that gets displaced to Tanzania and then to the US, migrates to the US. So why did you pick Angola?
Thank you for the question. I picked Angola literally because I love the music and dance from Angola. I love a lot of music and dance, but I specifically wanted to use for the story, for the purpose of the story, music and dance from Angola. Because of the romantic nature of it, and the particular dance in question, excuse me, that Walter's character dances to, Kizomba, is a couple's dance that's very intimate, very beautiful, sensual, and also requires a certain level of connection in order to perform it, in order to lead or follow. And I just thought that would be a really interesting metaphor for a partnership, for a relationship, is, you know, what happens when you're not connected, you're not able to, you know, be in that relationship, lead or follow in the relationship. But I did have the family displaced to Tanzania as a way for me to write about them a little easier, because I've never been to Angola and I do not speak Portuguese. But I, you know, would be, you know, Tanzania is a place that has hosted a lot of refugees, especially political refugees from all of Southern Africa, a lot of parts of Africa, but specifically Southern Africa, in their liberation struggles. And so it wouldn't be unusual or unheard of to have had Angolan people, you know, in refuge in Tanzania. So that's how.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how this was sort of like a secret dance movie. Sort of like, it's like Dance is Life, which is kind of like,
yeah,
great, because it's not like you have to be a super great performer to move, right? It's just part of living. Yeah, and what did you know from the beginning that you wanted that to be like a big element of the movie, or did that emerge when you were writing the screenplay?
No, I did. I did know that I wanted it to be an element of the movie because I love dance. Personally, I do a lot of Kizomba and Kuduro dancing as well. And, you know, it's a beautiful dance. It's also one of those, like, not a whole bunch of people know. Like, most people, if they think about African dance, they think of like the fertility dance or the rain dance, you know, with drumming and stuff, which we have those and they're great. But we never think of like sensual couples dances from Africa. Like, that's not a thing. But we do those. And so, and I just want, and the music is so beautiful. And I mean, beautiful, sensual, but also beautiful, like the longing and the, you know, just the humanity of it is just, and again, you know, with music, that's also something I'm very particular about, because African music tends to get lumped into, you know, just some like drum beats or, you know, twerking or, you know, something like very active sort of stuff. And it's sort of like we all get lumped into one pot, and it's like we have, I mean, we could do some dance, you know, and there's a very wide range of what we could talk about. And, you know, what's popular now isn't necessarily what has been moving all of us, you know, and dance and music in particular for immigrants too. I mean, and not just African immigrants, I think everybody has a very particular connection to the remembrance of home, the remembrance of culture, then also being able to teach, younger generations, especially in exile, what home is and what love is, and, who our people are in our language. And, there's places on the continent that I've learned about through music, South Africa being one of them. Growing up in the 80s during the apartheid struggle, is like we all knew about what was happening and what was important, and SWAPO and, Amandla and all of those things because of music. So it's a hugely important thing to African heritage people in general, and just wanting to truly insert that and not just have it be like a cool soundtrack in the background.
Yeah. The movie feels very contemporary, mainly because I couldn't believe I hadn't seen a movie before about that topic, because it's so common across cultures, across countries. Globally, the U.S. receives so many different migrants, so, and especially to New York. So why don't you, for people who haven't yet gotten an opportunity to see the film, just kind of give us a brief synopsis of it and sort of what led you to make it?
Yeah, the film is about a family that has been separated for 17 years due to visa immigration issues. And so at the top of the story, they're finally reunited. Walter, who's been in New York and working as a cab driver to support his family on the continent, is receiving his wife and his daughter. And it's the journey, following them as they get to rediscover themselves and one another, and using dance as a tool to do that. And the story was inspired by the relationship of an aunt and uncle of mine who were married in the mid-90s. Uncle got a student visa to the US, came with every intention of bringing my aunt and my cousin, at that time 5-month-old cousin, right behind him, and since then have been stuck in this cycle of visa applications and rejections and applications and rejections. It's 2020, so it's been decades since they've seen each other. He hasn't been home, they haven't been here. So it's the what if story of what if this mountain that they've been climbing for so long is no longer there. Auntie finally gets her visa. Where do they begin at that point? And so the imagining of like where they would go.
That's great. Yeah. And actors, I love each of your performances, so strong. I really believe that you were a family. And I wonder if you could talk about what grabbed you when you first read the script, what made you want to do the project. Ntare, you can start.
Just to piggyback off what Ekwa was just saying, she left out one key element, which was the character of Linda. So in the 17 years that they've been apart, Walter has fallen in love with someone else, and has a hard time trying to let go of that love. And we see that through the course of the film. But ultimately, his love for his wife and for his daughter is stronger than that for Linda. And he does everything he can to rekindle and reconnect with those two women in his life. But still, the ghost of Linda haunts him and actually makes it into the bedroom at a very critical moment in the film. I was really touched by this love story. For me, ultimately, it's really a love story. And it's about longing and desire and wanting to have something that's just out of grasp, and then having something land in your lap that's completely unfamiliar and having to try to deal with that. And I think it's just a beautiful story, a beautiful love story.
Yeah. And it's hard not to empathize with Walter because, it has been 17 years, it's like, I could see if it was like, a few months, then I might have been more upset, but that's, quite a long time. So it's very complicated. Zeenab, what grabbed you about the script?
For me, also, it's a love story, like Ntare says. It's a bittersweet love story, which that's one thing that grabbed me. But also because I'm oddly enough quite familiar with these characters in terms of the situation. Being from West Africa, I have relatives, aunts and uncles who have gone through that situation where somebody gets their visa, they go to, in my case, it's the UK, and then they're waiting indefinitely for something to come through. And then in the meantime, life still goes on. And, I had an uncle who actually had a situation like that where he fell in love with someone else, or his wife went on holiday and she decided she wasn't coming back, because it's all of these, these complications that happen when, visa problems get in the way. And so it's something that wasn't entirely foreign to me. I was very familiar with these stories, and I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for us to present it, for it to be seen, specifically in this one family. And but it's definitely a universal tale.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Jayme.
Oh, I was pulled in again by what happens when Sylvia gets to meet her father for the first time. That really captivated me, because we're not talking about a man who just up and left and abandoned her and her mother. This was somebody that she's supposed to see as a hero in a certain sense, right? This man that's gone on to provide so that we can have a better life. But how do you reckon with what you're being told versus what you feel? And all the expectations that build up after 17 years. I was so fascinated by that airport moment. What is he going to look like? Is he going to look like what I see in the pictures? Am I going to instantly fall in love when I see my father? And how is the family dynamic? All of that, which really don't get solved in the movie, right? That's the through line throughout the entire film. That's what drew me to that. All those questions, all that trying to connect, and even trying to connect to my mother now that she's having to deal with what she's having to deal with coming to America. So yeah, that connecting, that need to connect. I was very fascinated by that.
Yeah, I loved the diasporic element. To me really stood out. Just knowing you as individual people, like for example, Jayme, I had no idea that you actually weren't from the continent. Like your accent was so, I didn't know that until actually today. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Sylvia, all right. That was excellent voice acting.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And all of you, and I feel like in Ntare, you've played so many Black American characters in your career, and people who are from America, and I believe you grew up in the States too, but like now you're playing sort of somebody who's from the continent and has migrated to the US, and same for you, Zeenab, you grew up in the UK, I believe, right? And so I really loved just all the diasporic connections and links, and was that fun for you all to play? Because I imagine that those are rare opportunities that you got in this script.
Yeah. What an incredible, what an incredible opportunity this was to feel like family, because what you're talking about is like a disparate family from the diaspora, but to come together and tell this story in Brooklyn, which is the queen, where the true melting pot, was really a gift. Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was really fun. First of all, it was lovely to play something, an African part role that's not set in a war situation. I've done a lot of those, and it's wonderful to show an African family that's not necessary. I mean, they are refugees from another place, but they're not in that war situation that you often see depicted over and over and over again. And so wonderful to just see them having a regular family dilemma, which is like, how do we connect after so many years apart? And another thing that I loved about it is I got to add to my arsenal of African dialects that I've done. I am the most Africanest actress in the world. I have covered North, South, East, and West, and I got to do, it's my first time doing East, Tanzania, Angola and Tanzania. I got to cover both, so that was exciting. You know, good to go across to the other end of the desert for me.
And you got Portuguese too. I don't know if you knew that already, but
well, yeah. I did know Portuguese, but I'm from Sierra Leone, which was apparently discovered by the Portuguese. Oh, we went there. And then it was a Portuguese colony, then it was French, and it was British. But there's some Portuguese in the language, in the dialects now, but it's all but gone because the lingua franca there now is English. And so it was great to go and face the challenge of trying to do the Portuguese accent, which is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. So it was fun to challenge that because, that's another one in my arsenal. Yay.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to highlight is like people may not necessarily get like how complex that is, what you were doing with all the different voice work and regional differences, national differences. So definitely look into that. And I wanted to ask Ekwa about, you chose not to subtitle the Portuguese, at least. I don't know if that's changing in other places you'll show it, but I thought that was really great because it kind of, for me, it took me deeper into the story and I had to rely on the actors to know what was going on, just and the visuals to know kind of like what was happening. Why did you choose to do that? To not subtitle it?
Because I didn't feel like we needed it. I mean, I don't speak any Portuguese, so I wrote the script in English. And when we started working together, as a group with the actors, Ntare is actually the one who had really insisted that it would be important to have some Portuguese in it. I knew going in that it isn't actually accurate for these Portuguese-speaking people to be more comfortable speaking English at home. But I didn't have a way, I wasn't going to be able to help. And so I had kind of just settled on like, okay, we're just going to really perfect these accents and like do it that way. And we worked, after we worked with the actors, we had actually our choreographer who was from Angola, along with our dialect coach, worked on changing, helped us to, identify some of the lines that could be made into Portuguese and still, and we, based on what the answer was, what the response was, what the reaction was, we'd still be able to understand what they said. And it was a challenge because, Americans don't like to not know what's happening. And so there was a lot of anxiety when, during the edit around like, but we're not going to know what they said. And it's like, you will know, I promise you, you will know, you really, really will. And, in a previous Q&A session, we were talking about just the art of expression and glances and body language in terms of being able to communicate with each other, amongst the characters in the film. And I think, it kind of, because we kind of float in and out of language and dialect and use so much body language, I feel like all of those things helped to separate the importance of like hanging on to every single word and syllable of what they said. And it's less about what they said, but, that you're watching it and you actually do understand what they said, even if you didn't get the exact word. And I just think it's important, Americans feel some kind of way, generally Americans feel some kind of way about subtitles in general. So, there's the group of people who feel that it's very distracting to watch a lot of subtitles because you're, doing this the whole time. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to just be with the actors who are doing all the work for you. So it was a hard decision it wasn't hard for me. I fought for it. It was a hard decision to get people to buy into, but I think the response that we've gotten has proven that it did work. There's also going to be closed captioning when we distribute. So there's all our work out the door, but
yeah,
we tried.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Jayme?
Oh no, I'm and my family hates it. I am one of those people that watches subtitles with everything, like closed caption with, like even if it's in English, I don't know why I do that. It's a comfort for me to like know.
Yeah.
So I don't mind when I watch foreign films and there's different subtitles, but yeah, I'm one of those few Yeah.
Yeah. And just to pivot back to you, Jayme, I love Sylvia's arc so much. It was so great to see her go from, you know, where she was at the airport to where she lands at the end of the movie, and just sort of this opening up of her. And I wonder if you could talk about what that was like for you. Did you, anything surprise you about your character by the end of shooting?
That's a good question. I didn't really go into it knowing a whole lot. If that makes sense? Like, of course, I read the script and I had my opinions on Sylvia and what she may be going through, but I really tried to just ride the ride and see how she's affected. And as it was going, like, I knew from the beginning that that dancing was going to be the way that Sylvia gets to most express herself. But I didn't really understand to what capacity. Like, I've talked about this before, the scene with Ntare on that couch, where he gives that permission, where he sees her. That was like an eye opener for me. And so, like, throughout the journey to ride that wave of what is that, to come in and watch everybody and take in so much information and then let that go in the dancing, that freedom, and begin to merge the two experiences. So yeah, a lot of that, you know, you have your theories, or you think about how you're going to approach that, and then you get to working with these actors and you go, oh wait, no, there's more listening, there's more learning that's happening than anything that I thought about how I'm going to approach Sylvia, you know? So all of it kind of was a surprise.
And how was the dancing for you? Does that come naturally to you? Did you have to do a lot of preparation?
I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I genuinely didn't think Ekwa was going to even give me this role, because I was like, there's no way. That's like, yeah. So there was a lot of, Manuel was amazing, our choreographer. He was just so amazing and patient. And we had a lot of intense rehearsal leading up to even filming for the dance sequences. And, you know, that worked even for the competition itself, is like using those nerves that even Sylvia must feel of being in a new country and having to express this dance that she knows nobody's going to understand or know, right? So it kind of worked in my favor to have that kind of, oh God, I hope I'm doing this right. I hope I'm showing up. You know, all of that. But it was absolutely nerve-wracking. By the time we finished filming the competition, I was so thankful. I was truly relieved and grateful.
Yeah, those battles. Zeenab, was there anything that surprised you about your character during the process of shooting and or, you know, at the end?
Not really. I mean, the only surprise I felt was a personal Zainab surprise, in that I don't get to dance. Everyone else gets to dance. I don't get to dance. That's the only thing. I thought I was really waiting for my moment to like bust a move or something. Because it's actually I have the opposite thing with Jayme. My comfort level is dancing. It's when I actually have to speak that's nerve-wracking for me. Because my background was I actually used to be a professional dancer.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's actually that, if the situation had been reversed, the dance battle would have been the easiest part for me. I would have been, I can do this. I don't have to think about it. The other areas I had to work in were actually a bigger challenge for me, because it's all about emotions and words, and, you know, just that's a harder place. That's a deeper dig for me as a person, as an actor. So my only surprise was like I didn't get to dance. Get that moment of relief of not having to think, but I loved it. I welcomed the challenge. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you take away anything particular from the experience of playing your character?
Maybe a little bit more sympathy for various aunts of mine who've been through that, you know, and various family members who've met family members after years and years and years. You know, I mean, I was born in London, but my parents were both in medical school. So I was sent to Sierra Leone as a child at 6 months old. And I actually met my parents again for the first time because of the immigrant life. You know, you get stuck in, you're in college, you're in this, and then life goes on. I didn't meet them again until I was 10 years old. You know what I mean? So I could totally, I could empathize with Sylvia. I understood what she was going through, but then I also found a certain sympathy for the parents as well, which is something I never really thought about, because now I'm approaching it as an adult and not through the eyes of a child.
Yeah, that's one of the things I loved about the script, was the way that you got to sort of see 3 different movies in one through each person's POV. And so it'd be easy to kind of demonize your character, right? But in the process, especially you coming in the last third, your POV, it does create empathy for Esther, and, you know, just imagining what it was like to have to first leave Angola. And then it feels like her religious community is sort of what helped her cope with that trauma of displacement. And so it's been sort of like a survival strategy for her.
And you understand how Esther is the cornerstone of the family. Like you said, it is so easy and often the default to demonize a woman like Esther's character. And that was another thing actually that I loved about what Ekwa had written, is we get to see the humanity and what Esther's actually going through. And you understand she is essential to the well-being and the thriving of the other two. Without her, the whole family crumbles. And that is like such a beautiful thing. Like when you get to that third part of the film, you're just like, yes, like I want more of that. So I had to put my 2 cents in there.
No, I love those moments where the neighbor's like, "Hey, Queen."
Right.
That was another kind of like nod to sort of like Black Americans and how we deal with diaspora. And
Esther wrote it, Ekwa wrote it brilliantly. I didn't have to act there. I've been in that situation where they say, "Hey, Queen." I'm like, "Queen?" Okay.
Right.
Fine. Huh? So I love that. I love those little funny little moments of, the little nuances of societal mores, that you don't really see. It takes a particular eye and, to see that and write that. So it was wonderful to be able to do that.
And Ntare, what was your takeaway from Walter? I'm sure you had many.
Well, in terms of surprise, I think the big surprise for me was the gift of my fellow collaborators. Because sometimes, you can have a perfect script, but something just doesn't click when you meet with the other actors, or something, there's no connection, or at worst, you can't stand each other, but you have to try to make it work. But, and especially with Zeenab, because I've been, a fan of hers. If you ever saw her in The Convert or in Eclipsed, just
I loved Eclipsed.
blown away. And so I was always like, what? How does what? And so when I had this opportunity to work with her, I was kind of nervous, because I was like, you don't want to meet sometimes you say, don't meet your idols, or don't meet the people that you really, because it just demystifies everything. And you're like, what the hell? But it was the exact opposite. It was such a treat to be able to work opposite her. And the same with Jayme as well. I mean, I was blown away that it was her first job out of school, because she just seemed like the consummate professional. And my son, driving around the car with her just felt so at ease and natural, and all of our scenes together with both. So the big surprise for me was just, the collaborators. And Ekwa, I'd known personally, we'd been friends and haven't ever really worked together, but had talked about wanting to work together. So that can also be a surprise, because, sometimes the longing for something and you get it finally, it doesn't meet your expectations.
Yeah.
And we did clash. I'll say we did clash, Ekwa and I, a few times, like wanting to insist on something or trying to do this or whatever. But I felt like with all great relationships, you work through them, and you get through, and you, at the end, you discover that whatever differences you did have, you were able to work through, and you see that the gift that that you created. And I feel the big surprise for me is like that we're all here and filled with so much joy and appreciation, and I feel so proud to have been a part of this. And hopefully, I'll get to work with all of you again sometime.
Yes, I second that emotion.
Yes.
You can always tell when the cast really genuinely liked one another. It shows in the movie. Somehow there's something, mysterious about it. And, that energy translates so well and just boosts the film even more than what's on the page, I think. So I saw that, Ekwa, this is going to be distributed by Netflix for the African continent, or Netflix Africa. Was that really important to you to get this film have it be able to be seen by folks on the continent?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And Netflix is a great partner to have for the continent. Of course, not everybody on the continent has Netflix, but it certainly would reach a whole lot more, especially in this year where, the film festivals and sort of, which is the way that most films, indie films, are watched on the continent, is not happening, or movie theaters is not happening. Netflix is a wonderful partner to have. So I'm so excited that, we get to show our own. It's not, there's parts of Africa that have had long histories of being able to watch African films and watching ourselves on film, mostly the Francophone countries. But for the Anglophone and Lusophone countries, we've been fed a very steady diet of American, British, and, everybody else's films, and never our own. It's, it's changing, I would say, certainly since the digital age, but it's still hard. So we celebrate so much when we see our own films, and also being able to see a variety. So, we're not just seeing Juju films, which are great, but there's more. There's just a variety of opinion, a variety of expression. And I've certainly never seen, maybe I've seen one film that's from Angola, maybe two at most. I mean, I can certainly count on one hand, or that deals with any of the Lusophone countries. So even though I'm not a Portuguese speaker and have never been, I'm just excited to put my little 2 cents and sort of like, let's talk about these guys. They're great. We love them. So
East African
I'm
films,
excited for that as well.
I think of Mira Nair mostly because of Mississippi Masala when I think about East Africa films that take place in East Africa. But I think this film, it'll be interesting to see if it creates conversations, across diaspora again, because, I imagine some of your relatives, they think when you go to the West that they think of it very differently than how it actually is.
Yes.
And probably maybe a little bit in reverse too, like, you may not be caught up with what's going on there either. And so I can see some really great family discussions happening after watching this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, any last words? Anything you feel like people have not talked enough about with this movie, or that you really feel passionate you want to say about this movie? Anyone?
Well,
Go ahead, Ntare.
It's all about love. It's really it's a pure love story, classic love story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay, great. Well, congrats on the film. It comes out December 11th in select theaters, and then it'll be on demand after that, right?
It actually comes out in select theaters and on demand on December 11th throughout North America, and then on December 18th throughout the rest of the world. So excited to be able to share it, excited to be able to share a story about, a regular family who happened to be African, who are just striving to be close to one another and to connect, and are fighting for love.
Yeah.
You know, which is something which sounds really mundane, but is not something that we get to see very often. It tends to be a lot more dramatic, you know, the most amazing African that's ever lived, or the most destitute, you know, issue-ridden African that's ever lived. And there's a lot of space in between those two characters that, you know, remains to be explored. So I'm so thrilled and excited and really honored to have had these three wonderful people and, you know, the rest of our cast and crew who were able to just like put in all of their energies and all of their love and breath into bringing these people to life in ways that will forever be marked in history. And it's a huge honor for me.
Great, yeah. And I think that a lot of times we don't think about African immigrants when we talk about immigration, at least in the US. And I love how you made visible that, like, you know, there's Africans are also part of the immigration population. And I think we don't see enough of that. So
yeah,
really great universal story that also is like very specific too. So thank you all so much.